Do you know what, lads? I wanted to have a halftime debate with Charles, and I wanted to talk Wayne Rooney versus Didier Drogba versus Luis Suarez. I think we need to rank them 1 to 3. So really have a think about this. Give it the due diligence that it needs. We are talking about Premier League greats. Luis Suarez that season was truly mesmerising. Didier Drogba, in terms of being a match winner and playing to the highest standard at the biggest occasion, there's nobody like it. And Wayne Rooney, it's quite easily argued, in fact, probably argued by me, that he is Britain's best ever product as a footballer.
Should we take one each, maybe, or?
I mean, let's maybe we should explore each individually. Should we start with Didier Drogba and just see how you all feel about him, and then have you got yours in mind? Do you know where you sit on this already?
I know where I sit on it, but I do think Didier Drogba is an unreal striker. He was one of those strikers you never wanted to come up against, especially when Chelsea were in their pomp and at their peak, and he was a big part of that. Obviously, you're blessed with a lot of players, but he led that line so well. He bullied defenders at times, and I think he's one of those players that if you look purely at stats, kind of it doesn't tell the full story about the player that he was. He's also, as well, people speak about players nowadays, and we kind of focus on big games. You know, what has he done in the big games? What did he do against the big six? What has he done in the cup finals? And when people, I think it's unfair when they do this about Thierry Henry, but they always go, didn't do it in finals. You can't make that argument about Didier Drogba because he was a player that stepped up in those big moments. His style maybe isn't as attractive to watch as maybe the other two on the list. It's but unreal player that scored some great goals as well.
Yeah, and also when people talk about his lack of numbers. So when people like to focus on the stats, and Didier Drogba is actually a great example as why I don't love stats and why I don't commit to talking about stats and why I'm quite snide about them generally. Because Didier Drogba, through the prism of stats, is fairly uninspiring. However, what I think a lot of people maybe don't know about Didier Drogba is in 2010 when Chelsea won a double, he scored that season. He scored 37 goals, which is more than Wayne Rooney had ever scored in a single season and more than Luis Suarez had ever scored in a single season.
Yes, people, what's going on? Welcome to the club. We are brought to you by the wonderful people at Super 6. If you don't know what Super 6 is, then where the hell have you been? Download the Super 6 app. It's a free-to-play game. You predict 6 scorelines. If you get 6 correct scorelines, you could win £250,000. And we have our own club mini league. The code is Club23. Join that league, get involved, and not only will you have that chance of winning £250,000 every single round, but also if you finish top of our mini league, we'll give you a £100 classic football shirts voucher. Nice and easy. Click the link, download the app, join our league, and we'll see you over there.
So in terms of his ability to do it on the numbers as well, can also be very impressive.
Yeah, 100%. I think Liverpool fans watching this with the Suarez argument, I think they'd argue Suarez's peak was better than maybe both, because Rooney had a kind of protracted world-class kind of career at Man United. It was longer, it was probably 10 years long, same with Drogba. But Suarez, in that one season that obviously we can all remember, 13-14, he scored 31 goals in 37 appearances. We're talking about these unbelievable kind of goal of the season contender goals almost every week. I mean, the ones against Norwich City in particular come to mind.
Won the Golden Boot and was banned at the beginning of the season as well.
That was great. He missed so many games.
Yeah, he missed 7, I think.
And he took that Liverpool side that has so many deficiencies, a young Sterling alongside him and Sturridge, and he took them against Man City to win the league. So that form in one season, I think you would take that over maybe Rooney and Drogba, but I don't think it's hard. I don't think it's easy to argue for Rooney or Drogba above Suarez.
Luis Suarez was unreal though. Like you look at the style of player he was. Obviously, people can talk about his antics and the misdemeanors and stuff, but as a player, unreal. Like running on the ball, he didn't always seem to be clean, but he'd bundle his way through. Strength, tenacity, aggression, get through. But then he also had that edge, that quality to score great goals, bend them in the top corner. All sorts of goals he'd score as well. 6-yard box, 18-yard box, outside the box. Absolutely unreal.
Do you know, I remember Luis Suarez. I know this isn't strictly the Premier League thing, but just to sort of accentuate quite how brilliant he was. When I went to Brazil for the World Cup, we went to Sao Paulo and we played Uruguay. And England were a better side overall. We should have been fine. Rooney put us 1-0 up, I think. And then Luis Suarez it just happened. Like Gary Cahill didn't know where he was, didn't have a clue. Yeah. And then, like right in front of where all the England fans were, just Suarez, a couple of minutes later, Suarez, and we're out. You know, he was that good so often at every level.
Yeah.
And you know what I also think he was, and I say this with the word may have negative connotations, but I don't think it should. He was at all costs a winner, wasn't he? He was just a true winner. He would do anything on a football pitch to win. Do you remember that against Ghana?
Oh, crazy.
I don't, obviously, we all buy into like the vilification of him at that point because it was funny. But I don't blame him for doing that. You're keeping your team in the World Cup. You still
and they went through.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't blame that at all. You know.
No, I think Suarez.
If he was Ghanaian, the Ghanaians would have loved him. Do you know what I mean? So
I think he was as. I think in terms of an elite season, it's up there. It's comparable to anybody. It's comparable to any single season. But I think overall,
does
it's
it matter
different.
that they didn't win the league?
Yeah, it does matter. It does matter, yeah.
Why?
But no, I mean, it matters because when we're judging footballers, I think we have to factor this in. There's a conversation that's often had about Harry Kane. It's a conversation that you could like extrapolate and make relate to. Like Matt Letizia was an amazing footballer, but we don't really hold him in the regard that perhaps we should because he was doing it at Southampton, not winning any silverware. Silverware counts. And had Luis Suarez driven that Liverpool team to the title.
They should have done.
But maybe it's his fault they didn't.
No, that's what I'm saying. So like, it's
So
not
if he
like
wasn't
you can't
banned,
give
if
an
he didn't-
excuse
if he
like
didn't-
Gerrard and Suarez.
true,
They had
that's
the
true.
chance right there.
Also, if Luis Suarez didn't decide to try and feast on Branislav Ivanovic's arm at the end of the previous season, he wouldn't have missed 7 games. Maybe they would have picked up more points in those 7 games and they would have won the league. So it's all very well to be generous to Suarez. Oh, you know, they'd have won the league if he weren't banned. Why was he banned?
But when we have these debates, I look if it's the World Cup final or the Champions League final for Team X, and they're both, you know, all three of them in their prime. I think Suarez gets in, lads.
Nah, for
maybe
me,
it's a long-term legacy. We can have the debate about Rooney, and we'll talk about him in a minute.
No, for that
but
debate,
Suarez,
I am going to talk about Wayne Rooney now. For me, and look, I'm a little bit biased because I've seen him achieve great things for Manchester United and become our club record goal scorer. But when you look at Wayne Rooney and what he achieved, and at his peak, at his prime, at his best, all right, his best goal scoring season was scoring 34 goals in 09-10. But just at his peak as a player, bullying opposition, winning the ball back, playing his teammates in terms of the assist, the style of footballer he was as well, that street footballer ethic. He could do all sorts on the football pitch. Wayne Rooney for me is, as Rory said, the greatest British product in terms of football. I think he's great. I know a lot of people argue for Henry and different players. For me, he's the greatest Premier League player. Look at his goal catalogue. And then, as we've just mentioned before, he stepped up and he did it when Manchester United needed to win leagues and European Cups and all those kind of things. Scored in the Champions League final, although we didn't win that one. But Wayne Rooney,
I think it says a lot about his career that look, Suarez would have to play down the middle. Drogba had to play down the middle. Rooney could have played left back in his prime, and he would have been the best left back in the Premier League, in my opinion.
I think Wayne Rooney,
total footballer.
On this conversation, obviously you can spin these. They're all elite, brilliant players, and you can spin it any way you want almost. But I don't think anybody would argue that Wayne Rooney isn't the best footballer of the three.
Oh, definitely.
He's overall the best footballer. But, you know, to take it to what you said, Booth, if it was a World Cup final and you won game and whatever, the answer then you said was Rooney. I think in that very specific example that you used, the answer there is Drogba.
Could be, yeah.
For that very specific, I'm not suggesting that, look, when we come to conclude who we think our numbers are here, Rooney versus Drogba versus Suarez, I'm not now saying it has to be Drogba. I may vote that way, but I'm not suggesting it has to be Drogba. But to answer the question that you just suggested,
to have that clutch moment, to score the range of goals.
If you're going to say who do you want in a final to win you the game out of these 3 players, there actually isn't a debate here. The answer is
in terms of the record, yeah. But if it was a clean slate right now, and you're asking a centre back, who would you rather mark? I think Suarez would be the last person on that
Wayne
list.
Rooney's high on that list, you know, bro. Wayne Rooney gave defenders nightmares.
No, of course, all 3 of them did. All 3 of them did. But
He'd do all sorts of defenders, twist them up.
But I do think in terms of a final, I mean, this is fact. This isn't opinion. In terms of a final, being the man in a final, winning the team that he's playing for trophies, scoring goals against huge opposition when it most matters. That's Drogba, not compared to Rooney and Suarez. That's Drogba compared to any footballer to have ever lived.
In the history of the sport, yeah. Of course it is, yeah.
So on that alone, the other thing that I didn't necessarily realise about Didier Drogba in that 10 season, it was Rooney and Drogba clearly the 2 best. Rooney that year, 34 goals, 7 assists, in 44 games. Same amount of games, Didier Drogba. More goals, 37 rather than 34. More assists, 16 rather than 7. You look at the goal involvement every 66 minutes.
Did he score in the FA Cup final?
I may be just off on this. I think Rooney ended that season with a big ankle injury. And that's what kind of scuppered us in the Champions League against Bayern Munich, if I've got my year right. Champions League against Bayern Munich because he'd done his ankle. Which was a problem for us that season.
But they are all
right. What's your free?
Like Rooney's definitely the best footballer. So
the most complete. Yeah,
Rooney's definitely the best overall footballer. So I think Buvey.
I'll go Wayne Rooney number 1, number 2 Luis Suarez, number 3 Didier Drogba.
Fucking hell, me and Buvey agree. But
I don't think
I agreed with a lot of what we said about Drogba,
close.
and
it's really close, isn't it, lads?
It's pointless making an excuse because we're talking about 3 great footballers.
I just think everything that we're saying is applicable to the other players, to give it to them.
You know what
Didier Drogba did.
You know what might be
like you go Wayne Rooney scored loads of goals
in Spain.
Yeah, but we can't use that because
but
maybe you are using that
without knowing.
Maybe
I remembering what I saw in that final season for Suarez. It was disgusting. Drogba never reached that level in a Premier League campaigh. I refuse to believe it in terms of what he did in a Premier League campaign.
He may not have had the numbers of
he
that
did have
season.
the numbers. He has better numbers in that.
That's not in the league though, isn't it?
Drogba, that's
all season. Yeah, all season. In that season, in the season 2009-10, the year that Chelsea won the double. He scored 37 goals, 16 assists.
I was talking about all-round play, mate.
And Chelsea won the double. Liverpool 13-14. He scored less goals, less assists, one more assist, less goals.
The total level of the footballer, mate, the total level of that Luis Suarez kind of performance that season was disgusting.
Okay.
What the amount of goals he was giving up to other people, the amount of the way he would drive from midfield at points, it was disgusting.
And I will go Rooney. Rooney overall was a better footballer than Drogba. I don't think I can argue that. In terms of the different argument that you put forward, I think the answer is Drogba. But in terms of being a better footballer, the answer is Rooney, followed by Drogba, followed by Suarez.
I'll go Rooney, Suarez, Drogba. Let us know yours in the comments. I'm sure you already are.